Hey, Clayton, if being unclean is not a sin, why does it require a sin offering in Leviticus chapter 15? Okay, this is a really good question. This is someone who has been paying attention to what we've been trying to teach about Leviticus, and then as they're reading it, they're saying, okay, how does this actually work? It doesn't seem to fit what I've been told. Okay, so let me, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, give you a little bit of context. Okay, the book of Leviticus deals a lot in the categories of clean and unclean. These are what we call ritual categories. They're not moral categories. It is not a sin to be unclean. It is just a state of, are you presentable in a holy space, right? Are you presentable to go into God's presence? So if you're clean, it means you are presentable to go into God's presence. If you're unclean, it means you're not presentable, okay? And so it's not a sin to be unclean, but it is a sin to bring something unclean into a holy place. Okay, so you can't enter a holy place if you're unclean, because that would be wrong. That would be the offensive thing, okay? So it's the equivalent of this. Eating flaming hot Cheetos is not a problem, right? Like there's nothing wrong with eating flaming hot Cheetos. In fact, I wish I was eating flaming hot Cheetos right now. But you know what would be wrong? Is if you go up to a bride on her wedding day and you give her a big hug with your flaming hot Cheeto hands, and you get the dress all orange and red, right? That would be a problem. It's not the Cheetos that are the problem, but where you brought the unclean Cheetos to, right? More serious example, okay? If you work in scrubs, right? You work in a hospital, you're a nurse, a doctor, and you're in scrubs. There's nothing wrong with scrubs. Scrubs are great for that. But if you talk to medical professionals, they'll tell you that when they're done with their shift, they feel the need to change and get out of their scrubs, because it just seems like not the sort of thing you want to bring into other places after they've been in a medical environment. Or the clothes you wear when you're doing yard work, totally fine. There's nothing wrong with wearing those. But if you wore them to give a eulogy at a funeral and you're wearing all your kind of grubby clothes, that would seem out of place and disrespectful, right? So this is the idea of clean and unclean. It's not the thing itself, it's where you bring the thing, okay? So that's what we've been trying to emphasize this as we've been talking through Leviticus. But when you get to Leviticus 15, it talks about some states that make you unclean and what to do about it. So a couple of them that it talks about are bodily fluids, right? It talks about if a man has a discharge of semen or a woman is on her period, those bodily fluids make you unclean. Again, they're not sinful. There is nothing wrong with either of those states, but they make it so that you are not able to go into the temple or the tabernacle at that point. But this is the part that the person is asking about. In the instructions about how you can become cleansed from that uncleanness, like what do you do to go from being unclean to clean again? One of the things it says to do is to offer a sin offering. And so the person's thinking, wait. I heard Clayton explain unclean is not a sin, but if you need a sin offering, doesn't that imply that it's sinful? Okay, this is where it simply comes down to a misleading translation for that word. The word that is translated there is a word that it can be translated with the word sin there. But in this context, scholars will tell you it does not mean sin necessarily. Now, sometimes sin does make you unclean, but this covers things that are not sinful. And so you'll actually notice this. I'm pretty sure most of the times when it comes up in the NIV translation, the footnote will tell you it could be translated purification offering. Not sin offering, but purification offering. It's meant to be the sort of thing that cleanses you, purifies you from anything that made you unclean, whether that was a sin or it was something that was just a normal, amoral reason for being unclean. So it's not necessarily about sin per se, it's about purification.
Thanks for listening. If you've got your own questions, email questions@BibleSavvy.com. Like and subscribe to catch our regular episodes every Monday on the Bible Savvy Podcast.